Has started.
Very good. Thank you. Martha, thank you. And it's good to see you. Yeah. So, so I'm hearing somebody's conversation. Is there? So I'm sorry. So someone's on the line, and I don't know if they're talking to us or someone else. Your mic is on, and
I think it might be Janet.
okay. Hey, Janet.
I'll put my mic off.
Okay. Janet may have people in your office. Is that right? We can hear conversations. So let me ask, we have cell phone Kentucky guest. Who is that?
This is Nancy.
Hi, Nancy. Thanks for joining us. And a Frankfort, Kentucky guest. Who is that? Is anyone calling in?
Yeah, I was trying to join the link meeting, but it says I was in the lobby. Somebody had to accept me, so that might be.
You've been accepted.
You're in.
Okay, so let me see.
It's possible, I think, for you to be in twice, Nancy, so you might want to get off of one of those.
Okay.
Okay, good. So Nancy's, yeah, maybe both of those. Is that right?
Probably. I don't
Okay.
know. I think I'll function with the calling because I still can't see anything.
Okay. Yeah, just by phone. I think that's all we get.
Nancy, Link doesn't work very well in Chrome, so if Chrome is your browser, you might want to leave and go back to the message and copy that address, and then open your browser for Internet Explorer.
Okay.
And paste it in there, and that may give you the result that you need.
All right. Thank you. I'll try that. But in the meantime, I still won't leave the phone.
Okay.
Thank you.
And also, Kentucky Farm Bureau guest. And so who is that?
Dan, that's me, Jim Costigan.
Jim, good. All right. I thought that might be you, but I wasn't sure. So I'm glad you could make this meeting.
And I'll only be here for a while. I've got to leave to attend a funeral here shortly.
I'm sorry about that, but I appreciate you being on when you can. Also, Patsy Kinman was going to join us. I haven't seen.
I'm here.
You're on. Excellent.
I'm on.
Patsy, that's good. Was there anyone I missed in kind of checking in? Okay. Okay. Well, this isn't, I'm afraid, I'm sure that some people that are more skilled than I can have highly effective link meetings. and I hope that what we can do is catch up, touch base, and hopefully have a quick, good result out of this. But let's jump to the agenda. And I think I'm sharing my screen. Do those that are on link see the screen?
You haven't shared it yet.
Oh, well, okay. I was earlier, and
Click on share. And is it a PowerPoint or?
no, it'd be a Word document.
Okay. Is it on your main monitor or secondary monitor? There you go.
Okay, good. This is not what I'm trying to share. So move that away. Okay, let's just do this.
There you go.
So what we have in front of us is the agenda for today. And what I wanted to do, I won't recover our task, although welcome Patsy. And so I will recover our task just very briefly. This is a group of folks that are state council representatives, would be yourself and Jim, representatives of councils, extension, on-campus representatives, on campus both at Kansas State University, Kentucky Kentucky State and the University of Kentucky, and agents actually from across the state. So we've got a diverse list, and I hope you've had an opportunity to see the lists of who's on the task force. But the task force was put together by Extension Administration with really 3 key goals. One is to study the system, the processes we use, and the structure of our advisory councils, and at really all levels. And that's something we'll talk about today, about looking at some of the additional levels of work. The second key area is to design and implement a strategy and process to engage our advisory councils to help them reflect on current function and suggest ways for improving our work. So our second task isn't necessarily just to study them, but to ask them to become involved in some processes to think about what's working and what they might be able to do more effectively. And then finally, at the end of a year, we've been kind of tasked to do this in a 12-month period, a little bit longer because we started in the fall of 2014, is to provide some written recommendations to administration regarding what we found and what we think could be improved in the process, structure, training, or support for Extension Council work. So those are the charge or the task that has been given to us. And thus far, we've done several things. And these were my notes. I'm going to get rid of them. But we actually have been working on designing systems and surveys and resource tools at several levels to try to engage and ask questions and better learn about what's happening within our council work. And so we'll get into some of that current work next, but I wanted to say welcome and give you an opportunity to maybe introduce yourself. I'm sorry this is the link is a little less than ideal, but is there anything you'd like to share with us about who you are and how long maybe you've been on the State Council and your history with Extension?
I've worked with Extension for probably about 30 years, and I was a 4-H'er to begin with, and I've been on the State Extension Council for about the last, for my second time around, about the last 6 years.
Excellent.
And Karen asked me to serve, and I'll try to do my best.
Well, we appreciate your perspective. Patsy, where are you located?
I'm located in Grant County, Kentucky.
Grant
In
County.
Williamstown.
Excellent. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so we'll just jump in and we're going to try to get a lot of work done kind of quickly here. I wanted to give you an update, give everyone an update on our work. In February, we met in Lexington, and at that time, the agents had done some preliminary work to develop a survey that could be shared with agents about councils. And we took that meeting and actually kind of went through, polished that survey, formed the questions, and developed a process of or a strategy for how we were going to implement it. Right after that meeting, Karen went and visited with the district directors. The district directors visited with the agents, and in all but, I think, one district, actually I think all districts participated. We just don't have all the results back from all the districts yet. Those results were compiled and shared with Kristen. Kristen is an amazing person. I'm sorry she can't be on the phone today, but she took it and has compiled it, and I did share it by email, but wanted to give you a sense, and Kristen was very emphatic that she says, don't make any decisions on this yet. This is just really kind of the first run at it. and not all the information is in yet. There's still a district that I think the information has been mailed but hadn't arrived and isn't a part of this. So this is really more for us to talk about, think about, than it is to act upon, because the final version may look differently. But I thought this was actually quite helpful. And Janet, you were a part of kind of facilitating this in your district, is that right?
Yes, that's correct. I did.
So how did you feel, how did it go? I mean, the process, was it received well?
Yes, it was. I mean, whenever you get up and you hand out a survey to agents, there's always going to be the skepticism of, well, what is this and what difference is it really going to make in the long run? And so we should expect that from agents because they've been jaded by past experiences. But overall, I felt that they welcomed the opportunity to speak about their councils. There is a huge amount of frustration coupled with, well, what are we doing with these councils, and how much more effective they could be by agents that realize potential with other agents that's like, I don't really know what to do with them. And, you know, they kind of are there, and we just sit there and wait to understand what to do. And this could be so much better is the bottom line. So at least I looked over the results from my district before I sent them to Kristen, and I was amazed at the good responses that we got back. And the fact that agents are welcoming the opportunity to speak, but I think they are chewing at the bit for the second step of what we know is going to happen, which I was a little concerned about, because apparently the second phase was not discussed with district directors. And I hope I'm incorrect about that, and maybe David just didn't understand that, but it's, to my knowledge, the first step is the only thing that was discussed at this meeting, which is a little unfortunate because agents want to know, well, what's going to happen after this? And we do have a second step of what's going to happen, but apparently that has not been put in place. And so I'm a little concerned about that.
I don't, yeah, I'm sorry. I don't think it has. I mean, I think that coming out of this meeting, the focus was kind of in a very urgent way to see if we couldn't get on the agenda to do this survey. And I think it's not trying to sidetrack our work. It's just that's we do need to do that, to talk about when will this face-to-face happen and how.
Well, and the reason I'm concerned, I'm not thinking anybody's trying to sabotage the process at all. That's not it. But this whole concept that we met as agents to come up with was a two-part process that should be put together and presented as a whole. And I think that would have enabled us to really to have the people have a better understanding of how they responded to the first piece, coupled with what's going to come next. You know what I'm saying? It's like
yep.
It's a complete process with two distinct parts,
yes,
but each is dependent on the other. And I think it has been presented, just for the fact that the second process was not presented, it now has become siloed. I'll use the new term for that, you know, in a sense. And I mean, we're going to have to work harder to make the connections and to make it very evident that this was a two-part process and how one plays into the other.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that's actually insightful and good. I mean, it's not good, but it's good that we're aware of it and can address it. So, I did send this out. I just actually got it from Kristen last night, and I sent it out this morning. Has everyone had an opportunity to look at this?
I didn't. I did not see the email this morning. Okay. I was in an earlier conversation with some others, and so this is the first time I'm seeing it.
Okay. And for me too. Actually, she sent it after hours last night, and I opened it this morning, so I haven't looked through it yet. But let's take a quick look at it if we could. So the primary functions of the council overall, planning and guiding programming is good. I mean, is one of the top answers. And this is kind of consistent, I think, with what we found in that first Turning Point survey. Not all of them are doing program evaluation. Not all of them are promoting. But this is good, so it's consistent. Do you feel your council understands or relates to your needs and issues? I thought what was interesting here is that 61% said maybe, somewhat. And so there's a question there in terms of how do we help our council understand and relate to the county needs and issues, or how do we make sure that we have representation on those councils that does understand? So there's a question that may be explored stemming from question number 2. Let's see, CEC most successful, involvement in special programs was the top answer. Struggle, commitment, and stepping up to the plate, with a close second, third, and fourth of attendance, adding new members, and roles and responsibilities. So this is, again, I think points to, although that was just 16% of the answers, I guess, were there. That doesn't add up.
No.
So I'm not sure how to read that. Actually, we'll have to, again, and let me emphasize, when Kristen shared it, she titled it Preliminary Uncompleted Results. So we may need to go back and look at some of this, but it does give us a quick glance at, I guess, where the maybe some of the percentages are weighing in. Maybe they're not accurate, but we can get a sense or a gist of overall where these are happening.
Dan, do you know how many districts this represents?
I don't. I think it, I know that District 4, I think, was in the mail yet. And other than that, I think she said she had received them all. So, I mean, it may be close, but again, no, I don't know for sure how many.
Okay.
And so it's just a first blush look at kind of what's happening. We've got all over the place responses to average attendance and numbers, times of meeting. Most meet, looks like 4 times. Rotation, most have a rotation for officers. I think this is helpful because these answers do start to give us an indication. Kristen shared that she expects that she'll have the rest of the results and have it compiled within maybe a week to 2 weeks. So within the next week or so, we will be able to kind of maybe revisit this, look at what the actual final responses were, and have a document that maybe is a little bit more ready to respond to. But I did very much appreciate the speed of the ability between our last meeting and this one to host this survey, to get responses back, and to even give us kind of this first blush compilation of what some of these responses are. So, gang, what do you think? Do we want to walk through these, or do you want to just look at them on your own? Give me some feedback of how you'd like to address this.
This is Janet. I need some time to really absorb what this, I mean, I need a little more background on how many districts this is, how many responses we had out of how many agents, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And to begin to kind of absorb, because I can tell you from District 6 and reading answers, and see, I'm not seeing like, I mean, we haven't gotten to the, well, tell me if yes, how, and those are very subjective, but their answers are in narrative form. And so far I'm not seeing those things, you know, and I want to see those things, because that's people writing from the heart. I mean, I had some surveys where people wrote and then went over on the lines and went up the page. And I mean, that matters to me when somebody has spent the time doing that, not just raw numbers, yes, no, or percentages. I'd like to see all the answers, you know, too, all the narrative answers.
Yep, and those aren't here. I mean, she did a summary to report back because she knew we were meeting, and I do appreciate that.
Right. But in some way, I want to read every one of those, you know, in some place, and get a feel, because that's the people that were passionate enough to say something or honest enough to say something, that they took time to write it down. And so, I mean, as far as what we do with it, you know, I guess it seems.
Okay.
And then I'd like to be able to have it district by district, so that it at least can be reviewed with district directors district by district, to know, like, some of the recommendations of how, in discussions with administration, of how we begin to move forward with, you know, just keeping people abreast with this.
Yeah, and so we've got a couple questions on it. I'm going from the bottom up, but question 4, in what areas has your struggled? And Jonathan noted that there were other responses. She did say in her email that yes, there were actually a couple that she just gave the top responses in this, but that there were many other responses. So this is not the full report.
Yeah, as a task force, I think we need to see everything.
Yeah. Okay. And Chuck, though, also said, kind of even as a preliminary look, 18, do members of the council help you plan programs, conduct education, and evaluate? Not so much. You know, and so this is good. And I think it also raises a question of how do we do that effectively? Of how do you engage volunteers in the you know, design of planning of educational, conducting of educational programs, and evaluation? And I think that's really a rich area for us to be able to help agents think through how they might best do that. Okay. Given that this is just what it is, and that's a first blush look at this document, and you should all have it. I did send it out to the list. I think this is helpful, but it's probably too soon to respond to. But it also helps us kind of frame, again, what kind of information we might be getting out of this. I mean, we knew it by the questions we asked, of what questions we were seeking responses to, but I think this will be quite helpful. And so this is the extension agent's perspectives on the councils. Now, Janet, do you want to say a word about the face-to-face, the next step? Because we talked about this as kind of a 1-2 process, a 2-part process. And so, and I'm trying to recall here, we were looking at maybe in the fall that they would meet with a face-to-face. Was that your thinking as well?
Well, I'm a little confused on that, because I think that we left that a little bit open. I think we were thinking that we would hit this in May with face-to-face. You know, you do one in March and then you do one in May, and that's why I'm a little concerned that that's not been discussed. Because the fall, I mean, I thought we were driving toward having fall extension council discussions.
Yes,
And nothing's been talked about with that, because district directors are already talking about having needs identification done by counties, and then we're going to a district forum, So it's like we've already lost this concept of momentum for this. I mean, I honestly do not understand why administration has not really presented it as a complete package with a timeline and where we were headed with it. So somebody else has got to answer that, because I don't know, we're going to lose momentum. And if we have to do it in the fall, we have to do it. But I'm already saying that there's already discussions about getting plan of work done. That foundation of thought has already been laid with agents, that that's what's going to happen in the fall. And nothing was said about looking at these councils anymore.
Yeah, so how do we regain that momentum? One of the things that we had discussed was getting a letter to the district directors, and that was actually kind of more around, I think, the idea of asking them to identify best practices. But, yeah, I had drafted one of these. Oh, here we go. These are my notes from the conversation with Kristen. Yeah, and so she said District 4 is not in, but all the others are. About 250 surveys so far have been in. And so she's putting those together. So, so that's very much still preliminary, but I did want to talk about this letter, or does this letter help us regain momentum is kind of the question.
I'm sorry, Dan. It's not going to help us gain momentum until you outline this total process and how this is a part of that. Now we're siloing off into something else, and it loses this big picture concept of where we were headed, starting with this survey, and then we're going to have discussions with agents with reflective questions, and district directors can do this on the side, but it's all heading toward this council. It's like nowhere are we giving a big picture with step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over the, and presenting it like that. Everything is fragmented, and we are going to lose momentum yet again if this continues.
So that sounds like you're suggesting that we have a full chart of activities, and I couldn't agree more.
Well, yeah, and I thought that's what we were headed toward.
Yeah, I wasn't able actually to capture that in our last meeting well, and I apologize for that. And actually, if it's clear in your mind, I mean, we talked about dates and times, and I'm also wondering if that wasn't part of our challenge, was that it may not have also been kind of explicitly written out for administration when they asked for the next step. I think they asked for the next step, which was the immediate next step, which was to host this conversation and survey with agents. So.
Okay, could we recap that, and I'll take some notes on that?
Yeah, I think that would be most helpful, and thank you, Martha. So let's recap that, and who can best detail? We had, our plan was to develop the survey, which we did, compile the results, which Kristen took on and is and will complete within the next, she anticipates, she said week, but even week to 2 weeks, by the end of March.
Okay.
When Kristen and I visited, we were talking about a different schedule. So I mean, I think our fear was that it wasn't going to be able to connect with the councils again until the fall. So that was what this letter says too. But
what about an email to agents to explain the process now?
yeah, let's define our process, and then we can talk about that communication plan with the agents and with the councils and with the district directors.
This is Janet. Agents also need to know the results of this initial survey. They need to, everything goes back to them so that they get an idea. They don't have to have every comment everywhere that I would hope that we get to see, but they need a summary of responses thus far as a preliminary for guiding them toward that next step of the reflective questions.
Okay.
Or at least to go with them when that's set out. And I think the next step is communicating what's next. Give them the results, communicate what's next as far as the next discussion point. But that's got to be set up first. And then you've got to give them, and administration's got to agree that we're going to do something with the County Extension Council in the fall. Because right now, all that has been said is we're going to meet and we're going to work on needs assessment for a plan of work for next year. That's it.
This is Jerry. I tend to disagree a little bit there, Janet, about I don't know that we need to send out these results to the agents yet. I don't want them to reflect on the results of the survey and that influence their answers when we do the face-to-face meetings with them. Does that make sense?
It does, and I think you have a valid point. I just want agents to be transparent with them, and well, if we don't send results, we need to say what we're doing with the results.
Oh, absolutely, I agree with that, but I just don't want to.
They need, well, I don't know. I still agree and disagree a little bit. I mean, I would want to know, well, what happened with that survey? What did it say? I mean, maybe that's just me. And I can understand how you feel that it might influence answers for the reflection questions.
Now that we did say that the second set of questions would be influenced some by the survey, or could be.
We did.
And we might want to some of those questions based on answers received on the survey.
Yes, that's absolutely right. I mean, we need some discussion, or at least to be able to look at these survey results and make sure the questions that we have come up with obvious needs. And for example, at least in my district, it was glaringly obvious that this committee structure, for a county extension council, that is in the publication that we keep going back to that kind of lays some foundation, that is there, that people don't get this, and they certainly don't get some aspects, particularly the idea of public relations, or at least understand that as part of a county extension council. Now, with that said, I think people, they may be planning some programs, and the one thing that I think pulled the fat out of the fire was the fact that we had a centennial year, and people did some things, because that was the majority of programs that were planned by the council related to the centennial recognitions. Otherwise, that would have been glaringly obvious that people have done nothing with that.
Janet, get us back on track then. At the face-to-face discussions, the initial proposal was that in April or May at the district staff meeting, that we would host these face-to-face. That's what your process map was? I mean, am I clear? Was that what we had discussed?
Yes, that is exactly what we discussed, that this whole agent input was a two-part process.
And so in order to do that, we needed the results of this first survey compiled and back to be able to shape the questions around topic 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 around the around the questions that we wanted to ask in the face-to-face.
Well, to make sure that we're not leaving something out that should be reflected.
Okay.
So this is Nancy. So then would it be okay to have, with the first part of the survey it's almost done. So then you move into your face-to-face discussions for the reflective questions. And after all of that is done, at that point, then would it be okay to share the results? Or at that point, is it not necessary? I'm just trying to get an idea of, I agree with Janet. I think that if you don't tell them what we're doing, then they lose interest. But I also see Jerry's point that it may affect how they're going to respond, but at least we need to tell them what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree.
I would recommend that we don't share the initial results right now and that we just move forward to the second part. I'll agree with Jerry on that. And at some point, we need to communicate the first part to them. And maybe we just communicate both pieces at one time, after the second part's done.
I think once the second part is done, we release the whole thing to all agents. I think they need to be in the loop.
I'm absolutely good with that. But I am disturbed at the fact that this has not been, understood, communicated, whatever,
right,
through administration. Here's where we're going, here's what we're doing, and this is where we're headed.
Okay, let's get there, though. I mean, I think it's frustrating for all of us on the task force to not have it clear, and we're not very clear together. But that's where I'm hoping we can gain some clarity of how we can do this. So the next step is, while Kristen compiles and finishes the survey results and shares those with us, and then the kind of the subgroup that was able to develop this face-to-face proposal and the survey, let me ask the whole task force here. Do you feel like we want to, as a whole task force, revisit given the survey results, the questions for the face-to-face, or do we just allow the task force to modify as needed? That's the question. So I'll ask it again. Kristen will complete the survey results. Given those results, does the whole task force want to have feedback and investment in how the face-to-face questions get drafted? And maybe we can speak up or type up.
Dan?
Yeah.
Yes, I think that the whole task force needs to be involved in that. We don't have a whole lot of the agents online today, and I think they probably need input into whatever decision going forward. I'm not quite sure though. I know that we're trying to get this done as with expedience. I'm not quite sure that some of the districts will have face-to-face meetings in May and June. So I don't know if that may be a reason, Janet, that they didn't discuss that second part. I don't know. I wasn't in that discussion.
Thanks, Chuck. That sparks a memory, though, that was a concern. I mean, I think that was brought up at our last meeting.
Okay.
I don't care if we have it in May or we have it in September, but the reality is we shouldn't have done it in March, like hurry up and get it done, if we weren't ready to move on the next part. You know what I'm saying? That's what's frustrating. I mean, we could have.
Well,
because it's a two-part thing, but it's neither here nor there. That's for at this point. So where are we? Where are we, and when can we do the second part?
Exactly. And so that was actually what I was trying to kind of walk through. So we have, let's, in response to that question, and not really hearing a lot of responses when I asked, let's ask the agents that developed this, the survey and the face-to-face, to take, when Kristen's results are complete, to revise these as they see necessary, and then share that back with our whole task force. And then maybe as a task force, we can commit to very quickly making certain that this is all good. In the meanwhile, I mean, a couple things probably need to be moving forward simultaneously here. We need to be getting clarity and or permission to be able to host these meetings in April or May, or as soon as is possible within the districts. And I mean, is there any other way to do that?
Dan, I think you're going to have to meet with Karen and figure that out.
Well, so saying that, are you expecting administration will ask each of the county councils to meet to do this? What are your expectations or thoughts when you say that?
Well, first, we have to finish the agent part.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
we have to develop what would be done at the county extension council based on the responses with these agents. You know, it's like...
Yeah, no, that's got to happen, but you're also saying that we need to communicate with the councils, with the agents, and with the district directors, and that needs to be happening while we're polishing and honing these questions for the face-to-face, right?
What? I'm getting a little confused here.
Yeah, so, I mean, sequentially, I know we need to do that, but we can't wait until we do that to then ask to have these meetings. We need to communicate now.
I'm not suggesting that. I'm talking about getting together the sequence or process of what we want to do and getting that out there so that administration can set this up.
Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing, Linda. Or Jenna. And so how would you propose that this gets set up? This is where I'm at a disadvantage in that I still don't know the annual schedule of what the districts and counties are doing when they meet with their councils. So in an ideal world, if this were to work as envisioned, at a district staff meeting in April or May, we get on an agenda and ask for a face-to-face. And that's still something that we want to pursue. Am I right?
Well, that's what we agreed to, but, you know, I don't know.
That's what we have set up in District 3. I mean, that's our plan. I don't know where it dropped off different.
Yeah, but, I mean, in District 6, David doesn't know anything about this plan.
So we know that one of the districts isn't fully on board yet.
He doesn't know anything about it. I mean, District 3, Jeff is the district director of District 3, so of course Jeff's going to know about it. Okay? But where is everybody, who's communicating with the rest of them the same way? I don't know. I mean, who's going to do that? Are you going to ask Jeff to do that? I mean, I don't know.
Right.
I'm just telling you, David did not understand that he was to have a follow-up process in May with 6-topic face-to-face discussion questions.
Dan, were you in on the meeting with Karen when she met with the district directors?
I was not, no.
Well, I know that she's been out for the whole past week, so I'm not quite sure. I mean, I don't know when. I think she is coming back into town today, but that's probably why. I mean, I know that she has been away from the office for the past week, so we can't get in touch with Karen. But I think that probably is a discussion that you might need to have with Karen is to find out what actually was discussed
exactly
in that meeting.
And I will do that. I've reached out, but yeah, she's been out, so it hasn't been available to me. But that's helpful, Chuck. And I think you're right. We need to kind of be clear on what's been kind of the status of what's been discussed and with whom and what hasn't. So that'll help us get back online. I also know that it was probably Karen's notes from the meeting, and that's where Martha, I appreciate what you're doing, and that's to try to piece together this timeline. I should have jumped up and put it on the wall when we were talking at our last meeting. But we've got so this process of wanting to meet with a face-to-face with the agents and their councils in April or May. Some districts are on track to do that. Others may not be able to do it in April or May, and so we will ask if there's a convenient time that they can move forward on that. So that is track, if we want to say track one, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
okay.
second.
What
Yes.
I've got down is step 1 is compile the results, finish that process. Step 2 is to ask administration for face-to-face out in the districts where agents meet with councils. No, that's not right.
No,
That's not right.
No. It's to have an April and May district staff meeting to discuss face-to-face recommendations based on topics.
Okay.
And there are 6 of those topics with questions underneath that to guide responses using the college strategic plan process with what I call the post-it note process.
What we hadn't also, I think, addressed in that step was who would facilitate that process. Did Jerry in your group or in our planning, was it, I'm trying to remember, guys, was it clear who would facilitate that post-note method?
We were hoping in that situation that it would be agents and another person, at least one other person from the committee.
So to do that, what we need to get clear feedback from each of the districts is when, where, and if, how they're going to do the face-to-face. And again, that was the question that I think that Karen discussed with the district directors, but we haven't heard back from Karen to get clarity on that. So, but Martha, if you could add on our list that of somewhat urgents, is that the task force needs to know when those meetings will be held so that we can have a task force representative at each of those.
Okay. Meetings from it, the date for each district.
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
Unless I'm missing something, and guys, please know that this is a process that we all need to be clear on, because I guess what I'm saying is don't assume I understand it, because probably clearly I don't. No, we have ideas of how to move forward, and until we kind of can make sure that we all are thinking the same ideas, that helps us be clear as we move forward. Okay.
Okay, is our task force going to meet again and look at the results for all these?
Well, so that was a question that we raised. My understanding was, and I guess I'd like to hear your feedback if this is okay, but that the results would be shared by Kristen. The extension team that's been taking the leadership or the charge on the survey and face-to-face would modify the questions if they thought that was necessary, okay, and share that with the task force. And then what we need to do is commit to, again, April is not far off, April, May meetings, and so we need maybe a week turnaround time for feedback. Does that sound fair, council members or task force members?
Yes.
Okay. And I don't think that'll be hard, but if that works, if we can ask the team the agent team that helped devise this to give us recommendations, I think very quickly we could be able to give feedback. Then we'll have our final face-to-face it'll be clear on how we want to frame the questions for the face-to-face. And then we'll just need to make sure that we have talked through and thought through that process of how to do that sticky note process. And so that agents, or I'm sorry, task force members that are going out to help provide assistance with this face-to-face discussion are confident and feel like they know what it is that they're facilitating.
Dan, this is what I was going to suggest is that once the questions have been fleshed out and we have the dates, if the agent members, task force members are going to be facilitating that, we really need to maybe you meet with them by link or connect or whatever, just to go over with them the process of facilitation. Some of them may not have had that opportunity for training in the past.
I think that's appropriate, Chuck. I mean, I think that's important. There does need to be some clear guidelines established to be able to do that successfully. Awesome. So, I mean, I know that there's a big question there, but that's the nature of what this task force is doing, is trying to raise questions and answer them. And at this point, we've got we're stalled until Karen gets back in town or we're able to get in touch with her to know kind of the clarity of was that discussed and are dates established and where or not. And so I will make sure that I get in touch with Karen as soon as she's back in town. Actually, I've left messages so that I'm confident that we will. So that's a track that I think is valuable. Are there other details that we haven't, that we need to raise or address?
Dan, at this time, you know, we had discussed that in tandem with the questions that we were also going to be looking at our resources that we have available. Do we want to, at the same time, go ahead and develop some tool that our task force members can look over that material that we already have available. I know that some of them have done so, and see if there are pieces right now that probably need to be looked at and revised, and we could go ahead and start that project, that process.
It's a good suggestion. Let me ask a question before I answer your question. Martha, was that, and I'm calling them tracks because they're kind of, and I hope this doesn't make it silos, but the reason I'm calling it tracks is because some of these things are all happening simultaneously, and so step 1, 2, 3 kind of messes it up because they need to be happening at the same time.
Okay.
So track 1 was this whole process of following up on the survey and the face-to-face, and do you feel like you've got that captured?
I think so.
Okay. Track 2, in my mind, is what Chuck just raised, and that's, is there a way that we can look at resources as a task force and identify what pieces we think need updated and maybe what's missing? Chuck, that's all out on Dropbox, is it? Didn't you post the Strengthening Extension Advisory Leadership, the SEAL stuff out there?
I went and, yes, I posted many of the resources. There are also others that are online, but I posted a good deal of the resources.
So how can we do this in kind of a systematic way? And what I mean by that is so that we know that somebody's looked at downline and somebody's looked at the SEAL and somebody's, I mean, do we just let everybody look at everything, or do you want to make sure that do we want to break it apart and have people look at specific areas or not?
I think that would give our members, our task force members, some ownership of what, so they would, some of them may not be familiar with the resources as other people are, so it may be a good idea to break up in groups of 3 or 4 and divide up those resources and just review them. I mean, allow everybody, of course, I mean, everyone can have the opportunity to review them, but I think if 3 or 4 of us get together and do a really in-depth look at some of them and then bring our recommendations back to the group.
I think that is awesome. Do people care which resources you look at, or should we just create some teams?
Of course, now we've not got everybody on here today.
Right. I'm just looking for any feedback.
I think maybe they need to be organized into the different resources and then send it out to the whole team so everybody can get an opportunity to see. I don't care where I go, but there might be people that do.
So if we divided it into kind of some packets or whatever, however you call it, we divide it up and then let people sign up. Is that what you're saying, Nancy?
Yes, that's what I thought.
I like that idea. Chuck, is it too much to ask that, given the resources that you're aware of, that you kind of divide it into sections that people can review?
Yes, I can do that.
That's awesome. Okay. And that's kind of ongoing, but if we can give that a timeline, we can, what's realistic, or what, I mean, given the kind of the scope of the resources that have already been identified, a couple of weeks to break that up, or how much time do you want, Chuck?
I can do that next week. I mean, I don't think I can get it done today. I have some other meetings I have to attend to this afternoon. But I can work on that early next week and give assignments and groupings out. I don't know, how long, Dan, do you want them to be able, I mean, are we meeting at the end of April? Is that going to be our next time this group gets back together?
Yes, probably formally, although we might need to break up because April and May is when we are going to need people to do those the Post-it note activities. We'll need to meet before that. I mean, so we'll need to be a little fluid for those people that are willing to pick up some of the district to help facilitate those district meetings. But formally, as a whole group, yeah, we'll meet again in a month.
Okay, so if I send these out to people next week, and then ask them to work on it for 3 weeks, and that would give them 3 weeks to just look over that. I'm also thinking people may be going on spring breaks in the next couple of weeks and things also. Not me, but other people. But anyway, 3 weeks would give them enough time to get their thoughts back to me, and then I can compile that prior to our next meeting.
That would be excellent. So one difference maybe, just for clarity, a thought is that we break up the curriculum and then ask people to sign up for an area that they're interested in. Another way to do it, I think, is what I heard you say, Chuck, and that's that we just assign areas and say, hey, you're on this team. I'm okay with either. Does the task force have any preference or leanings? Do you want to just take some assigned piece and review it, or do you have a strong desire to pick your favorite pieces? So now's when you should maybe either be typing or go ahead and log in and unmute and tell me your preferences.
Yes, I can do either one, Dan. I mean, I can work it either way.
This is Martha. It doesn't matter to me which way it's
okay.
handled.
Nancy, what's your thought?
Nancy doesn't mind either way.
Jerry?
I think either way is fine. I think if you assign them, it's probably going to happen quicker.
Let's just do that. I mean, given the first 5 people said, just give me something. Okay. I mean, I think that'll work. Unless somebody feels otherwise strongly.
That will take less time. This is Patsy, if you just assign it.
Okay. Chuck?
I mean, just give them the information, tell them this is it, and let them do it, rather than them having to say, well, I'd like to do this, and then you have to decide and get it back.
Right. Yeah. I was hoping to allow if somebody had a strong area of interest or expertise or whatever, but in this case, I think to do a review, to give some suggestions, to note whether it seems like it's highly usable or whether it doesn't seem to fit our needs. I think we can do that. Okay. Chuck, that's awesome. And so to me, that's track 2. Again, track 1 was the face-to-face, the survey followed by the face-to-face. Track 2 is review of materials. There's a track 3. Track 3 is that we were going to ask our district directors to identify some outstanding examples. Are we ready to do that, or is that does that come later? Is it contingent on something else? If we're ready to do that, we can, kind of using the same framework of the council responsibilities, highlight those and ask the district directors to give us some of what they would suggest are counties that are doing exceptionally well in these different areas of function.
What council responsibilities are you going to tell them, Dan?
Well, I think what we were talking about, that's a good question, because what we had talked about is probably more than what we might want to bite off and chew.
I think you need to hold off on this just a little bit until we get some of these things done in sequence, and then you will know, because obviously knowing what counties are doing it best is also a good way to work in with training and mentoring as such.
Okay.
But I think we better clearly understand and agree as far as I'm not sure that agents clearly understand what the responsibilities of a council are based on this preliminary survey result.
Right.
So it's unfair to ask for examples of functioning councils when agents may not understand what a functioning council should be doing.
What we, what we were talking about was, kind of broadly speaking, structure, function, membership. I mean, we had some areas. Cherry Kay had shared a kind of a rubric that she wasn't there, and we didn't have a chance to talk about it yet. But that was kind of the broad area.
But we don't even know if that rubric is really. I mean, see, this is once again frustrating. We're rambling around when there's fog everywhere.
I'm sorry, what?
It's not clearly understanding because the rubric had definite areas toward evaluation, I mean, that we had looked at and taken from that piece, but yet it goes back to what is the clear purpose of a county extension council?
Right.
And what are the clear processes of implementing those purposes? And then you develop evaluation rubrics based on those things that everyone agrees to and everyone understands in the system.
Yeah, so where Cherry Kay, she went back to the document that, kind of the formal document of the roles and responsibilities of extension councils. I mean, that's where it came from. But so help me understand what you're saying, Janet, is that shouldn't be the. And I'm okay with that. If we need to hold on track 3 to gather best practices.
I think we need to discuss the rubric as a group so that all of us clearly understand that, yes, these reflect the absolute purposes as stated in the document. But then again, the purpose of review of this document and for these agent surveys is to have the opportunity to question the validity of some of the premises in the document. Are those really what needs to be in place in writing as a training tool to accomplish purpose?
This is Nancy. But the other way of looking at this is when district directors identify those counties that are doing exceptional work, what we may get out of that would be what people think versus our findings, perhaps, of what they should be doing. And I don't know if that's a necessary work, but that's what I see as far as getting the information right now.
Okay, I can understand that.
Okay.
If it's approached in that way, and it's stated in that way.
So, and I'm sorry, I was reading Linda's note that she's also leaving. So, Nancy, I'm sorry, can you say that again?
I was saying that if we ask the district directors to identify the counties who are doing great work with extension councils, at this point, what we would see from that is what people think at this point what is working versus what, and then we can compare to what it really should be.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm clear about it.
Yeah, no, and that's what we were wanting to do, and that might still, we may be saying the same thing, but we were wanting to be able to capture some kind of best practices, and by that I think we were talking about representation within their county or their area, best practices for those councils that were having great meeting attendance and seem to be functioning at a high level. You know, lots of participation, lots of involvement. I mean, so generally speaking, I think those were some of the kind of extension council functions that we were looking at. But I'm okay if we feel like that we can't do that yet. What I was really asking is, you know, what's that contingent on? At what point then do we engage that track 3 to ask our district directors to kind of gather some examples of councils that are functioning well? Is it premature to do that? And I think I heard Janet say it might be. What do others think?
I'm not saying to not do it, but it's how you frame it in terms of maybe this is preliminary input that we're getting from district directors just as we're surveying agents. As long as you look at it in that way, that's fine.
Okay, so yeah, no, the audience here though is as we had talked about, some kind of focus groups or sitting down and talking with the extension, either, I guess it could be agents or councils, to talk about and kind of explore what basically, you know, what's your secret? How is it that we wanted to be able to capture some good examples of well-functioning councils to kind of highlight.
And another source where we can get that information, I think Chuck had mentioned it in the last meeting, were the county reviews also, because that's a section where you review the councils. But again, back to the question, your question is, should we be doing that at this point?
Yeah, right. And so what I was kind of trying to draft out that Martha's capturing is this, not just a timeline, but kind of these key focus areas that we're moving forward with simultaneously, so that we can, in the fall, know that we've gathered the information and reviewed the materials and listened to the groups, so that we're ready to make some recommendations.
I don't feel strongly either way whether to go ahead and ask district directors for that information or wait until we get feedback as a result of the survey. If we're under a timeline, or if we need to get to certain points before the fall happens, it might be faster to ask the DDs. I don't know. It depends on how quickly they are willing to put some thought into that. Some of them can probably do it in a telephone conversation.
That was my understanding. I mean, when we had discussed it, that there were several folks that suggested that, you know, with a conversation, it wouldn't be hard to identify some, like I say, outstanding examples. So thank you, Martha. That's helpful to get feedback. What do others think? Is there? Can I hear from somebody else that?
Dan, this is Jerry.
Yeah.
This is Jerry. I think if we don't get started, at least starting those wheels turning, everything seems to go pretty slowly. I think we'll find ourselves behind the 8 ball later on if we don't go on and get started with it.
Thank you. Jonathan, you've been quiet. Do you want to, you're muted, but you want to type or let us know, what do you think in terms of, the question is really kind of relates back to, there's a draft letter for district directors on the screen in front of us, and what I was wondering is if it's premature to send that, and or if there's edits of how that needs to be presented. Okay, well, let's,
What about,
yeah, go ahead.
the letter is okay to send, but could we collect the information via telephone calls? And which district directors are on our task force? Is it Jeff Young and Jeff Smith?
Jeff and Jeff, yep.
Okay. Could we ask them to have conversations with their coworkers and get the information back to us?
I like that idea.
Or would there be some reason why someone else on the committee should do it rather than another district director? And I don't know the answer to that, so I'm asking,
Right.
do you all see a reason why it would be better to be someone who's not among them, or whether that would be a plus? Unmute your mic.
Yeah, no,
See, I don't know, Martha.
Well, I guess I don't know what to say at this point. I would like to know what the district directors discussed at that meeting with Karen, and because I would hate for you to send this letter, even though I know that we're under a time crunch. I want, not to create a barrier. So if something else was discussed or they had some other ideas, I think you need to be aware of that before you send this letter out. Does that make sense?
it does.
So
and
maybe
I-
perhaps would be have a conversation with Karen as to what happened before we decide on what to do with the letter. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And actually, Chuck, I think there's some
think that's a
wisdom
good
there,
point.
just to make sure we're not crossing signals with what maybe they had already talked about. This is a little bit of a different, it's not. This letter does ask them that, and actually says, I think, that we're going to host those face-to-face in the fall, so that needs to be corrected. But then whether or not we can start by collecting those good examples, we can do that.
This is Nancy again.
Yeah.
But I do think at some point, based on what Janet was saying earlier, it would be important for everybody to get some type of written communication from the task force. That way everybody is on the same page. Because this letter outlines what's happening, when, doesn't give specific dates, but at least it says the fall, later on, and so forth. So
Right.
maybe, that will create some uniformity.
I think that's good. And we do need extension administration support. I guess I'm, like I say, I don't know whether, I don't know how to email the whole extension agent list. I'm assuming there's a distribution list for extension agents.
Yes.
And so we probably need administration's either support or approval if we were to send out a letter, as you've all said, to agents that either gives kind of a summary of the results or that acknowledges their work on the survey and helps them understand that second step also. I mean, I did hear that, and I do think that's important. Okay, well, gang, I think what I can do, I actually really very, very much think that it's important that, you know, we all have opportunities for feedback and to give response to this and to help shape what's coming. So I appreciate your taking time to look at this. If with this letter that's here, I can send it out to you. I can re-edit it a little bit based on our conversation today. But if there's something in there that you think needs more emphasis, less emphasis, or deletion, I'm very open to that. And so that was why I was hoping to be able to share it. But I also know that kind of what Jerry said, I guess I really agree that we're trying to do a lot all at once. That's okay if we have a planned approach. But if we waited too far, I do feel like we would be behind the 8 ball, and everything would try to come crashing in this fall when also everybody's working on a 5-year plan. So, so Martha, can you share, how do you have questions? You've been kind of tracking the conversation and trying to put it into a timeline.
Well, I still have some questions that I need to get my thoughts together, my notes together. And I think what probably needs to happen is I need to listen to that recording.
Okay.
Because I think we've jumped all around in different places, and I didn't have my system in place of how I was going to record it very well, because I started just to do the steps, and then we started moving around again. So I'll put them together, but I do need access to the recording in order to make that happen. So I'm assuming, and I don't know a whole lot about this, but I need to get access to it, and it's probably going to mean that it needs to go up onto Vimeo and be processed. So we can do that outside of this conversation.
We can, but I saw that Karen was typing, and so she may either be posting how to find it, or she may be sending it to you.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah, thank you, Jerry.
I will try to put the notes in place and put some, generally when I take notes, I have the body of the conversation, and then I have to be done, needs to be done, or whatever, and then I generally put names associated with that, and that's where I'm not sure that I'm going to have all of that information filled in, but
okay.
I'm not sure that I can do that right now.
Right. No, that's that's completely understandable. My notes often, I'll go back to look at my notes and say, wow, because our conversations do kind of wander throughout. It's a complex process, and we're looking at it from lots of perspectives, and so our conversations sometimes reflect that. But Karen shared that she will get the recording to you.
Okay.
And I think that we are, at least at what we were hoping to accomplish today, we've talked about these things. Unless, is there something that anyone would like to raise that we've missed, or to reemphasize that to make sure we don't miss? Hearing none, I think this was helpful. And so, Chuck, you took some notes at the beginning. Did you take notes throughout? Chuck, are you there?
Yes, I took very sketchy notes, yes.
Well, attendance was, I think, when early on we were talking about who's online and whether we could record that. We do have a recording, I guess. So.
I have everyone's name listed. I'll send that to you in an email.
Okay. So to recap though for next steps, Chuck, you are going to tease apart the curriculum and resources that we have and put us into some teams and ask in teams of 2 or 3 to review those. Sorry. And I will talk to Karen as soon as she's back in town. I also have a meeting with Jimmy later next week to discuss and update how things are going. So within a few, it's Friday, so I'd say within the next maybe 3 to 4 days, I will also know kind of clearly, hopefully, what's been communicated with the district directors. Martha, thank you for taking these kind of notes within a framework, and if you can get those back within maybe a week, is that realistic? Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's as soon as I get the recording, I'll finish this up.
Okay. And we're expecting Kristen's work to be done within probably a week or so. So I think our pieces are going to be back together. As soon as Kristen's work is done and we have that final survey information, if the agent team would look at that, compare it to the face-to-face discussion questions, and detail whether or not they think changes need to be made, that would be helpful. And that also probably will take place over the next week to week and a half. And then, I guess based on the conversation with the district or with administration, we'll kind of get a better sense of what's currently happening. I did see, as we were talking, that I think Linda had mentioned Linda Combs had said District 2 will be meeting face-to-face in May. So I know at least one of the districts, well, a couple of the districts are planning on it. So so I think we're making good progress, and we do have a timeline.
Okay, D2, Linda, do you know the date?
She had to leave.
Oh, okay. Oh, what about any of the other agents on there? Do you have dates for meetings? If so, I'll record them right now.
That's helpful. Yeah. Anybody else online? Apparently not.
Okay.
So, okay.
Okay, now I have not been following the comments on here, so if there's anything in there that, when we close the meeting, I'll lose those. So if you don't close the meeting, let me look at those and see if I need to record anything from there. So Dan, if you'll just wait to close it.
I will do that. And I don't think there's much, but I'll let you review that.
Okay.
So with that said, gang, I feel like this has been a productive time on Link, actually. I thank you for your time and for your work, because actually more work is coming up in the next week or two. And are there any questions or anything that anyone would like to raise? I felt like this was very productive.
Okay.
So thank you all, and especially thank you all, Martha, Chuck, everybody, for stepping up and helping out with recording, capturing, and getting some of these details down. Karen, thank you for your help in making certain that this went well, too.
Okay, great. Thanks,
All
Karen.
right. Thank you all. Have a great weekend. Go Cats. And we'll reconnect. I hope you've got the next meeting date in April, which is, I need to look at my calendar. April 24th.
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock, yeah. And we'll see how well we're going. I think Link might be the way to do it. So Link or Zoom.
Okay.
So, okay. Thank you all. Have a great weekend.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
And Dan, I'm fine. You can go ahead and close.
Okay. Martha, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
And yeah, it's a bit of a challenge because we're such a quiet group.
Well, I do a lot on Link, and it's very difficult to have meetings via Link when you're trying to have conversations, because there really isn't a lot of the one-to-one discussion going on and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So whenever I leave a meeting, no matter how many people have voiced opinions, I still feel that something has not really gelled with it. And that's just the nature of Link. Some people just don't talk, and so